Welcome to the Sales Podcast, Session 70. To survive in a dog-eat-dog world, you need the top sales world. Welcome to the 70th edition of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we've got Mr. Jonathan Farrington all the way over from the UK. I caught him just before he headed off on a little 5-week holiday, as they say, over the big pond. And he was launching some major initiatives. And as he mentioned towards the end, he likes to do things in a blitz and then take a break, which is very good advice. Jonathan is a consultant. He is a business owner, entrepreneur. He's also a sales training expert. And we'll get into the initiatives that he's created, talk about the websites that he has. But along the lines of sales and sales training, today's joke is about a nun who was about to hop in the shower. And if you know anything about nuns, they do not live lavishly. So she has a little apartment. And just as she disrobes, there's a knock at the door. So she hollers out, "Yes, who is it?" And the response was a blind salesman. So the nun decides to have a little fun, and she opens the door. And the salesman looks at her and says, "Well, hello, sister. May I interest you in some blinds for your windows?" That's pretty funny right there. Think about it. A blind salesman. So you see, words mean things, and assumptions can get you into trouble. If you want to get better at that, check out the 7 Deadly Sins of Selling at thesaleswhisperer.com. Moving right into the Sales Podcast Manifesto, it goes something like this. Today is my day. I work diligently towards my goals, which are bigger than me. I bite off more than I can chew because only then will I truly know my current limits, and surpassing them becomes my new goal for today. Through education, accountability partners, and bold, decisive action, today will be better than yesterday, and tomorrow will be better yet. I'm ready to produce. And now, without further ado, Jonathan Farrington. Jonathan Farrington of Jonathan Farrington and Associates, all the way from the UK. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
Well, thank you very much. I'm great. I'm looking forward to a long, long vacation, and all is good. Thank you very much.
Well, that's really why I wanted to have you on the show, so you could teach us Americans how to really take a vacation.
I don't think I can teach you guys anything.
Oh, come on. Well, for those that may not know you, would you mind taking a minute or two and give us a little thumbnail sketch of you and your business? And then I will pull out of you the wisdom that you can teach us.
Well, you can try. Yeah, I'm currently wearing 2 hats, really. I mean, I'm probably wearing more than that, but I can only count up to 2. I'm the managing partner of my own global consultancy, Jonathan Farrington and Associates. And I'm also the CEO of Top Sales World. We think Top Sales World is the most popular sales venue on the World Wide Web at the moment. And all is going well over there. We've got a raft of new initiatives about to launch. We've got the most popular sales magazine, which we publish every month. We've got 200,000 subscribers to that. In my spare time, I write my blog, the JF Blog It. I think I'm now coming up to my 8th year of writing that. So that's what I do in my downtime. And I'm also the joint editor of the Sales Thought Leaders blog, which I edit jointly with Linda Richardson. So that's broadly, I mean, or even basically what I'm up to at the moment.
Oh, well, I thought you were busy. So, we may have to end this early.
Yeah.
So that's there's a lot to talk about right there, and I might skip around here. But on your sales magazine, so these 200,000 subscribers, is that an old school print magazine that actually gets mailed out?
No. It's always been online. I mean, it's now in its 3rd year, and we went online right from the beginning. And it's interesting that other paper-based magazines have also followed us eventually. This is the way to go. I think it's what people want. It's convenient, and we're very proud of it. Actually, we didn't suddenly sort of wake up one morning and have 200,000 subscribers. I mean, we've worked really, really hard for 2.5 years to get to that number. But what's really, really interesting is every month, several people, maybe loads of people sometimes say, well, this is a really great addition. How are you going to better that next month? And you know something? We always do. I don't know how we do, but we always do.
Why do you think that is? I mean, you keep it real, you keep it fresh, and you have a lot of contributors, or is it just a few people creating the content?
Well, I think it's because I'm never satisfied, frankly. I've got that sort of how can we do this better sort of mindset, which I've instilled in the rest of the team. And I believe that. I don't think perfection's I know this is a cliche, but it's so true. I don't think perfection is a destination. I mean, it's an ongoing journey. And I think we're blessed because we've got something like 60 contributors to Top Sales World site, to the venue. And we publish all of them at some point during the year, and they're amongst, if they're not the top 60 sales experts in the world, they're certainly amongst the top 70. So we just get this continuing stream of superb quality contributions from them. We've got a set number of feature writers that write every month for us on specific topics. So we've got someone that will write on sales management, for example, Keith Rosen. We've got people that write on social media and sales tools. And I think it's just a fantastic read. I mean, it really is interesting. I don't read a lot because I just don't get time. But, I certainly read that and love it.
So you started out, your career in sales, and then you create your consultancy, and now this has morphed into a magazine and Top Sales World. For our listeners that might be earlier on in their process of maybe in their entrepreneurial journey, doing their own business, would you encourage them to create some type of publication like this and to expand their brand? I think only if it fits within the overall framework of your personal strategy. I came out of corporate life in 1991. My last role was with Anderson Consulting, and I really wanted to do my own thing. So I kicked off my own consultancy, my first consultancy, and I was very, very lucky early on because I called in lots of markers and got lots of contracts early on, and that expanded. And it was only ever going to be a 10-year, it was always only ever going to be a 10-year exercise. It went on to 11 and a half years in the end because we got involved in contractual discussions and non-compete agreements, and but that sold, and I was pleased about that. And I really then needed something to do because I'd sort of signed this non-compete agreement, and although I was left with a small handful of clients, which I continued working with, because they wouldn't have gone anywhere else anyway. I think I'd would have had to have them surgically removed. So they stayed with me, and I really wanted to get online. I wanted to experiment. So what I did, maybe some of your listeners have heard me say this before, but this is a true story. I reached out to 10 people whose work I admired. They'd either written books or they were writing articles, or I'd heard them speak. And I said, look, I think that there's space, or there's certainly room in the sales space for a group of people to collaborate, share ideas, get together and, do something. And I'm not quite sure what yet, but I think we should do it. And I was expecting, all 10 of them to come back and say, who on earth are you? Yeah. You might be a legend in your own lounge, but we've never heard of you. But amazingly, they all came back because 6 months previously I started publishing articles, and unfortunately for me, they'd all read them, and it struck a chord with them. I think Jill Conrath, for example, was hiking in New Zealand at the time, and she was stopping at sheep farms every 48 hours to pick up emails. And she sent me an email, explained what she was doing, and said, I'm going to call you as soon as I get back. Of course I've heard of you. Yes, I want to work with you. And I just thought, this is just incredible. So, this was, 8 years ago? And amazingly, that group of 10 are still together and form the basis of this huge contributing team that it's grown into. So what we did, we called ourselves the Top Sales Expert Team. We couldn't think of anything else. And I bought the URL some time back because I
typically buy loads and loads of URLs, never knowing what I'm going to do with them. It's just, one of those stupid things that people do. So I had this URL, and we called ourselves Top Sales Experts. We put a site up, and we started collaborating. And then, all these people kept sort of calling me and saying, can we come? Can we join in? Can we play? And I said, well, yeah, of course. Why not? And it just sort of grew from there. And then eventually we started launching. We got the Top Sales brand, so we have Top Sales Experts, and then we have Top Sales Articles, Top Sales Management, Top Sales Awards. We had, we got 5 or 6 sites, and I woke up one morning, I thought, this is ridiculous. I mean, we're diluting what we want to do. Let's bring it all together, and let's create this huge sales hypermarket where the shelves are stacked, literally, with resource, every type of resource that salespeople could possibly want. And so we launched Top Sales World, I think, 5 years ago. And here we are today. And amazingly, and coincidentally, we're about to do a relaunch of the site. We've divided up the sales space into 9 strategic areas. So, for example, social selling, sales management, field sales, inside sales, etc. So when you come over to Top Sales World from May the 28th, instead of sort of wading through this sort of, this huge piles of irrelevancy, you'll be able to click on the specific area that's ideal for you and go straight there, and you'll read the works and enjoy the resources provided by experts in that particular field. So very excited about that.
Yeah, that's really great. So as you said before we turned on the recorder, you're launching that and then leaving for a month of a holiday, huh?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, only a madman would launch 5 major initiatives in one day. So I do feel well qualified. I mean, apart from the new site launch, we're creating the largest online library for salespeople ever created. So it's a resource. It's free. You can go in. You can type in the name of an author. You can type in the presentations or negotiations or communications or social media, whatever you want, and then everything will pop up: articles and tips and webinars and books and you name it, interviews. So that's exciting. We're also launching our first convention after all this time in Philadelphia, November 19th, 20th, 2014. It's called TSW 14. We've got a fabulous lineup of speakers, so we're doing that. We are launching on the same day. We're announcing this year's top 50 sales and marketing influencers. We've had a small research team of 6 girls, or ladies, who've been beavering away for 6 weeks to find out who really are the top 50 sales and marketing influencers. We do that every year. So we're doing that. So that's our 5 initiatives. And in case any of them go wrong, I'll be heading south on the 29th, the day afterwards.
That way you can say it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
Plausible deniability.
That's it. Nothing to do with me at all.
Oh, man. Well, would you mind if we got kind of granular on a couple of things? Especially with your Anderson Consulting background. I work with a lot of small business owners and people trying to get to the next level. And many of them struggle with really making that transition from a salesman or, a provider of widgets to a true consultancy, charging higher dollars, more for value, right, versus just pure hours on site. Do you have some words of wisdom for how people can make that transition to creating a true consultancy?
So you're talking here about business owners making the transition to a consultancy, or are you talking about individual salespeople?
Well, typically, the folks that I work with a lot are small business owners or corporate America type salespeople trying to branch out on their own. But either way, they're still stuck trading hours for dollars. And all they know is making the sale and moving to the next, or if they're the business owner, making the sale and then fulfilling on some type of services, where they're basically paid by the hour versus a more comprehensive consulting where they're paid for results. You know what I mean? Where maybe they only take a couple of hours a week and still make great fees because they are providing the value of their expertise instead of turning the wrench?
Well, you see, the problem that all small businesses have got today is that we've got a very level playing field. That's the reality. And when everyone's attempting to sell the same products at broadly the same price in the same way, then the only differentiator is actually price. And that's the real problem. And that's why the marketplace in general is becoming so commoditized. And I am on record as saying within the next 5 years, 80% of the current sales population will actually have disappeared or will have converted because their products will have become a commodity that you can buy online with a credit card, so no salespeople required. That's the harsh reality, and we are heading towards the Amazon model. However, whereas once upon a time, about 7 years ago, I actually had a vision that personal selling, face-to-face selling, might disappear altogether. I don't believe that anymore. In fact, I think what's going to happen right at the top end, the top 5% achievers, the top 10% achievers will become the top 20% achievers. And those are the people that are selling consultatively. But to go back to your question and hit it head on, the reality is that unless we're able to differentiate ourselves in some way, then we're going to be an also-ran, and then making that step up, to becoming a true consultant is going to be terribly, terribly difficult. The one thing that differentiates us is our knowledge. Because today, buyers aren't interested in us. They're not interested in our company. They're not interested in our products. They're not interested in our track record, all of our past successes and all of our badges. They couldn't give a hoot. Not interested. What they are interested is what our products and our solutions, and more importantly, our knowledge can do for them. That's what they're interested in. And the 5 magic words that automatically get buyers' attention are gain, save, improve, increase, and reduce. If you can go to the table and prove any of those with your solution or your consultancy or your wisdom or your knowledge, you will have their attention. But then, of course, you've got to prove it.
Yep. Especially nowadays. I mean, if you don't prove it, they'll just excoriate you online and you're dead.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the need is to differentiate. And I also think, one of the things I did very early on when I kicked off my first consultancy, yes, I aimed at differentiation, and I think it was a steep learning curve for me, but I knew that I got the knowledge and the experience, but it was just converting that into a saleable product and commodity, basically. But I think also, people sort of are saying today that relationship selling is dead. It isn't dead. It's just that so many salespeople, particularly young ones, think that they can use it right from the off. You cannot. You can't create a relationship from a first meeting or a second meeting or a third meeting. A relationship, like any other relationship in life, takes time to develop. But when it does develop, based on mutual respect and integrity and all of those important characteristics, then it will endure. But, how many salespeople think that it's important to be liked? I mean, it just is not important that your prospect or your client likes you. It's not important at all. What is important, the greatest compliment any of your prospects and customers can pay you is to tell you that they respect you. And more importantly, to tell other people they respect you. So when I meet up with salespeople, some of my students, and we might be doing a forecast review, for example, a pipeline review, and I say, okay, talk me through this one. And they say, well, I think I'm going to get that. And I say, well, okay, why? At the moment, you're at this point up the curve, in my view. Oh, yeah, but he likes me. And I just laugh and I say, well, he may like you, but will he respect you in the morning? And that's a reality.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, the big phrase in the sales lexicon has been for so long, people buy from people they like and trust. And,
yeah, but you can take the like out now. It's people that they trust and respect. And even then, I think that's a little bit fragile to begin with, I think people buy from people who they believe can actually add something to their bottom line.
Yeah, I always tell the story of when my daughter was 3. She's 9 and a half now. She had an undiagnosed ruptured appendix, and it took 11 days for them to figure it out. And the lady, the surgeon that eventually performed the operation was, when we met her, we did not like her. I mean, she had the bedside manner of Attila the Hun. But she was well respected, right? She came from Johns Hopkins, great background, and I trusted her implicitly. And, with the life of my daughter. And because she came well recommended, because of the way she conducted herself, even though she was not personable, she was professional, she was thorough, she was concise, got to the heart of the matter, and I was convinced she was the right person for the job. And, we said, hey, make it happen. So there was no liking in there at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating that salespeople should be, tough and cold and arrogant and conceited. Far from it. I think you have to be yourself. That's the really important thing. But what I am saying is don't go in and expect your prospects and clients to like you immediately. I mean, it's a bonus if they like you, but what's far, far more important, I repeat it again, is that they respect you. We don't talk up to clients and we don't talk down to clients. We talk with clients. We converse with, we communicate with. There has to be mutual respect for a relationship to grow.
Yeah, I get into that in my sales training in trying to help the salesperson realize just how much they have in common with that person, even if they have a big title and maybe they're the CEO of a big company. At the end of the day, that salesperson should be more knowledgeable, more of an expert in their one field. And if they can solve that CEO's problem, they should stand tall, hold their ground, and speak to them as a peer, because in their area, they're quite valuable, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I just to go back to something that you said, I totally agree. Everybody we meet, wherever we meet them, whenever we meet them, we will always have something in common. There will always be common ground. We just have to find it. There will be something.
Well, do you think, though, in the past there's been too much emphasis on that kind of chit-chat, finding that common ground rather than getting down to business? Because, some prospects you earn their respect by not chit-chatting, right, by getting down to business.
Well, it depends on the scenario. I'll tell you a story. This is a true story. I go back now to the early 80s when people in Europe were buying desktop PCs like they were going out of fashion, simply because it was the thing to do. They didn't know what to do with them. So I was heading up. I'd taken over this large IT company, and they were selling. They had a hardware division, a software division, a technical division. So the hardware guys were selling like shed loads of PC to companies who didn't know what to do with them. So we had this idea that we would get into networking, and we were one of the first companies in Europe to realise that if you started connecting PCs up, just how much more you could do. And that was where the real profit was to be made. So my guys had been talking to this major bank, and I won't say who it is, but it was a major private bank in London, and they'd been... the corporate sales guys had 5 or 6 meetings, and I was made aware of it. And I thought, okay, maybe we can do something here. Because it was huge. I mean, in those days, it was, I can't remember, but it was probably 3 or 4, maybe even £5 million, which was a lot of money in the early 80s for an IT contract. So I organised to have a meeting with the IT director. And when I walked in, one of the first things I noticed was that he'd got a golf trophy on his desk. And then I noticed his golf clubs in the corner. So I said, hi, Chris. Oh, that's interesting. You're a golfer. He said, yeah. He said, I won the 4-ball yesterday. I'm really chuffed. I'm really pleased. I said, how often do you play? I said, I try and play a couple of times a week. And I said, what are you playing off? He said, I think he said he was playing off 4. So I said, and just at that moment in time, about 3 weeks earlier, they'd opened a brand new course that had been designed by, I think it was designed by, I can't remember. Anyway, but it was a superb course and very, very exclusive. So I said, oh, well, we've taken out a company corporate membership at this particular golf course. So I said, I'm delighted to have a couple of rounds with you. He said, oh, what do you play off? I said, yeah, I'm playing off 4 too. So he said, I'd really enjoy that. Shall we get something in the diary? I said, yeah, let's do that now. So we booked a date. And it was the following week. So I said, okay, well, look, rather than talk about, this now, let's have a round of golf, have a chat and see what we do. We had a round of golf, and as we went round, we were talking about the contract. He explained to me what the sticking points were, and I said they can be resolved. We got back to the clubhouse, had a beer, shook hands, the deal was struck. And, that's an example of going outside of the box to do something important and to close business.
Did you beat him, or did you let him beat you?
I let him beat me.
That will rub them wrong, huh?
Yeah.
So y'all actually golf in the UK?
Yeah. UK's big. Yeah.
Time to time.
Now and again. Say what?
Maybe from time to time, here and there.
Yeah. No, I'm a big golf fan. I've been a big golf fan most of my life, actually. Yeah,
I love it. And then having my 7th kid, though, under the age of 17, has cut into my golf a little bit. But
7?
7.
Crikey! What are you going for? A soccer team?
Well, I tell people that the 5th was the only one we tried to have. I found out what I'm good at, and it's creating liabilities. Oh man! See, I'm a great salesman because I keep convincing my wife. So hey, I should be on your list there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so you get these top salespeople to contribute, and now how have you grown that? Because obviously you started this early 2000s, around 2002.
Do you mean Top Sales World?
Yes.
No, it's Top Sales World's about 5 years old now.
Okay, what about when you reached out to those top 10 people?
Yeah, that was 7 years ago.
7 years ago, okay.
Yeah.
And then can you walk us through that growth? Because, you took it from a purely a concept to now a very successful business venture.
Well, it's very interesting, because how many sales venues and sales locations are sitting in the sales location graveyard. What I have discovered is that in order to make something like that successful, first of all, you need very deep pockets. Secondly, you need to realize that you're going to be in it for the long term. If you get into it and think you're going to be in there for a year or a couple of years, and you're going to make a whole load of money, then you are sadly mistaken. So for, the first 4.5 years, we were in the red. I was paying staff from my consultancy work. But I was absolutely determined. And we've just worked through various phases. Everything is improved. I shared with you on May the 28th, the brand new site launches. And it really is, very, very unique. So to answer your question, we've just moved forward, not slowly. Actually, we've moved forward very rapidly. I know it sounds like an awful long time, but we've achieved so much along the way. We created the first the top sales awards. So we created the first set of awards for salespeople, but not like the Stevies. These are for the best article, the best blog, and the best sales solution. And that's now in its 5th year. And that's been a huge success. We created the Top Sales World Academy, which we put on every year. So we're constantly moving forward. So I think, my tip for anyone who's thinking of doing this is probably don't bother. But my second tip is, if you really are thinking about it, you've got to work out how you're going to monetize it. And to begin with, you've got to have pretty deep pockets, and you've got to be prepared to make losses for quite a while before you turn the corner. But most people don't, of course. They try it, they don't work out how to monetize it, and then they give up, even though some of those sites are absolutely excellent.
Right. Well, it's hard, for young entrepreneurs. I'm always encouraging them to go make a sale first, then go produce the product. I see far too many spend literally years on design and patent and whatever before they know if that thing will ever even sell.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, you had an advantage in having a 20-year career, and this was kind of a spin-off, right? Were you creating this to create a funnel of traffic back to your main consultancy, and that's why you could justify the expense for so long?
No, interestingly, and that's actually a very interesting comment. It's never been like that. I don't actually think that I've even had a call from a potential client that first saw or heard of me on Top Sales World. Conversely, I get lots of calls every month, lots of emails from people who say things like, I've been reading your blog for a couple of years, we've got this project coming up, we wondered whether you'd be interested in working with us. My blog is a constant source of new opportunities. Top Sales World isn't. It's almost completely devoid. In fact, I wonder just what percentage of visitors go to Top Sales World, click on About, and go, oh, okay, so this is the guy behind it, and this is the team behind it. I don't think they do. I mean, people in the industry, fellow sales commentators, they all know that, it was my idea and I run the show. But no. I mean, I think that I do this. I started this because I'm totally committed to trying to raise the bar of the standard of sales and selling in the sales space. And it's an ongoing quest. It really is. And I mean, the sad reality is that sales skills are actually declining rapidly. Whilst sales costs are increasing, sales achievement levels are decreasing year on year by 0.5 or even 1%. I mean, this year I suspect it will be less than 50% of frontline sales professionals who actually hit quota. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of reasons for that. I keep writing about it. We've gone away. We've moved away from basic sales skills, the things that made us successful over the years, because social media is more exciting. Sales 2.0 is more exciting, but none of that means anything if you can't sell.
Right.
It simply doesn't. You could spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on LinkedIn and Twitter. It will do you no good at all if you can't sell.
Mm-hmm. What do you think's leading to that? Because at least here in the U.S., we see record profits. The NASDAQ is up, the Dow's hitting new highs, the S&P 500 is hitting new highs. Companies can say, well, profitability is fantastic. I mean, we all know behind the scenes, they're gaming the system, they have access to easy money, yada, yada. But what can change? When you've got big corporations making dumb decisions, aren't they really creating this dilemma?
Well, I'm not sure. No, I don't think it is. I don't think the problem is at the top. I mean, yes, of course, if you can look at international commerce, and you can not just in the US, I've got to add. I mean, some of the errors of judgment that our major banks here in the UK have made are almost bordering on criminal, frankly. No, I mean, if we isolate out what's happening in the sales space, and people have said nothing happens till somebody sells something. I think I prefer nothing happens till somebody buys something, actually. But I mean, the sales space is becoming commoditized. I touched on that earlier, and that's the reality. And companies are waking up to that. But I think that we've taken our eye off the ball in the sales space. I think that sales managers aren't getting trained. They're arriving in the position because when the vacancy arose, they were the best performing sales person. So, well, if they can sell, they can manage. I mean, what a load of rubbish that is. The average tenure now of a sales manager, it was 18 months about 2 years ago. It's now just gone down to 16 months. And they're fumbling and faffing around and finding their way in the dark, and nobody's training them. Nobody's investing back in them. They're leading sales teams and hopelessly. I reckon 80% of people in sales positions today, including sales managers, are underqualified to sell properly and be successful. They're simply not qualified to be successful.
So how do things change? Well, you know what? Let's forget that, because who cares how things change? At the end of the day, how does the individual listener here, listening to this podcast, how do they capitalize on really that's an opportunity for them, right? If they take the time to get trained, they should run circles around their competition.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that is absolutely right. When the rest of the competition is so bad, it's very, very easy to be outstanding today. And I think what individuals have to do, they shouldn't be waiting around for someone else to make them successful. Don't wait around for your sales manager to make you successful or your company to invest in you. Work to the mantra. If it's to be, it's up to me. You're absolutely flooded with brilliant resource. And I'm not just talking about Top Sales World, although heaven knows, I don't know about you, but, when I look back to when I first got into selling, if I'd have just had 0.1% of the resources available today that salespeople have got today, my goodness, what I could have achieved. It's phenomenal. You have all these experts with all these years and years and years of experience, and they're giving their advice and they're sharing their knowledge, and they're committed to helping young salespeople, old salespeople improve and become the best they can possibly be for nothing. Yep. It's incredible. So my advice is really very simple. When I look around, when I look at my students and I look at my clients, I see the ones in those organizations that have the potential to become a top 10% player. They are all the people that are committed to improving themselves on a daily basis. Somebody's got to be the best. Why not you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you think there's too many options out there, and then people, they're just skimming around, nibbling at the edges instead of picking one school of thought or one mentor or what have you and diving deep?
Well, it's possible. What I can say, there's a hell of a lot of crap out there, and seriously, you've got to wade through it. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. I was discussing this with a very senior colleague who's a bit of a household name in the sales space yesterday. And we agreed, you can come out of corporate life and you can say, I'm going to be a sales trainer. And all you're doing is taking the experience of one position with you, and then you're calling yourself an expert. And it really is a nonsense. But, of course, if you're inexperienced and you've only been around in the sales space for 5 years or even 10 years, you don't see through that rubbish. When you've been around as long as I have, I mean, I had my first sales position 40 years ago, and we've gone all the way through all the various phases as sales have grown up, all of the generations and everything that's happened in the sales space. So, for people like me, it's very difficult difficult to pull the wool over my eyes because I've probably seen and done most of it. But to answer your question, I think that salespeople need to be very discerning, and you can only do that by experimenting. Visit a couple of sales locations, come across the top sales world, decide which of the 9 communities that you want to visit, depending on your role. Get in there, read some stuff. If you don't like it, or you try, you accept the advice and you try it and it doesn't work, well, go somewhere else. I mean, life is about choices, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, I think what you said earlier, nothing happens till somebody. Wrong quote. If it's to be, it's up to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
When it was around 2004 when I really internalized that and realized, my company may not give me the tools. I may need to get my own computer. I may need to buy my own training. But once I embraced that, that really was the beginning of the next phase of my life and career. And then, I was never bitter after that, right? I wasn't complaining, oh, my company's no good, yada, yada. I got better. I sold more. I moved on, did my own thing, all because I embraced that. It was up to me. And, never look back.
Well, no, that's right. And I think the greatest difficulty that most people have, not just salespeople, is that they never work out what they really want in life. I mean, they talk vaguely about, having a comfortable retirement and, having the house paid off and taking plenty of vacations or even maybe buying a boat. But, I mean, that's all material stuff. The material stuff is reward for our achievement. It's rather like if you ask the man in the street what drives salespeople, I guarantee that's after he's reached for his crucifix. I guarantee that he'll say money. Money's never been a driver for the most successful salespeople. They're driven by achievement because they know that if they achieve, providing they're working for the right company, of course, then the rewards will come. They don't expect the rewards before they've run the race.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've learned, money is just how you keep score.
Absolutely. Money's the reward, isn't it? It's nice to have... But it's the same actually. I've had this thought all the way through since I started my first consultancy. The money, of course, was important because it pays the bills and it looks after the family and it buys the things that you need. But for me, it was always the achievement. What I wanted to do at the end of a contract was to walk away with a job really well done and not just have a testimonial, but have created, an evangelist, I guess, someone that would be prepared to stand up and go, you want to get Jonathan Farrington in. This is what he did for me. For me, that's the real prize. That's the real reward.
Yeah. I think, though, at the end, that's just humans in general, right? Like, Thoreau said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And so I think it's just human beings. And, in sales, it's just so easy to point. It's easy for us to identify who the top salesperson is. Whereas it's not as easy to say, who is the top artist or who is the top computer programmer or who is the top mechanical engineer. It's like, that can be much more subjective. But I think anybody in life can, if they get clear on what they want, is going to be better off, right? It's just... We just live in the sales world. Yeah, I mean,
look, it's rather like the analogy I would draw is, you can get in your car and you can drive and keep driving if you don't know where you're going and you don't know where you want to get to. But, the most successful people would have a map. They'd have a plan where they're going before they even got in the car. Then they'd get in the car and they're more likely to turn up, aren't they?
Right.
There's that wonderful quote from Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll when she meets the Mad March Hare. And the Mad March Hare said, Alice says, where do I go from here? And the Mad March Hare said, well, that really depends where you want to get to. And Alice said, well, it doesn't really matter as long as I get somewhere. Mm-hmm. And the Mad March Hare said, well, it doesn't matter which way you go then.
Yeah, any door will do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Amen. Well, I appreciate you taking the time from the UK in the middle of your big launch before your holiday. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Well, I've probably got lots. I mean, as you've gathered, I love talking about sales. I am a complete evangelist. I really am, and I'm a crusader. I think that this has almost become a cliche, that we've seen more change in the last 3 years in the sales space than we probably saw in the previous 50. The rate of change is only going to increase. More and more salespeople are going to disappear as solutions become commoditized. I mean, people laughed when they saw the Amazon model. They said, they're going to sell what? Without salespeople? And the reality is that more and more products are becoming commoditized, and we don't need salespeople. We don't even need order takers. It's all going to be done online. I mean, we're witnessing it everywhere now. I mean, when was the last time you went there? A chat with your bank manager? When was the last time you went to a fuel station and the guy came out and filled your car up? I mean, people are disappearing because it's all down to bottom line. The reality is that those people that will succeed in the sales space, and there will be, I mean, a huge amount. There are 100 million salesmen and women in the world today. The ones that succeed and survive and even thrive, hopefully, are the ones that are totally committed to selling. If it's another job, and that's all it is, go and do something else. Because selling is the best job in the world if you're selling well. If you're not selling well and you're failing, it's probably one of the worst jobs in the world. Yes. So be focused, be committed, know precisely what you want, and only then can you surround yourself or look out and find the people that can help you achieve your objectives. But, I said it before, we'll say it again. If it's the B, it's up to me. People have to take responsibility. We are all the CEO of our own universe. And if we accept that role, we can drive forward.
All right. We will leave it at that. We can't improve on that. Well, again, thank you for taking your time. It's early Friday evening for you, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's almost aperitif time.
Oh, there you go. Well, have a great evening and a great weekend. And again, I thank you for taking the time to share your words of wisdom.
It's been a real pleasure. You'll let me know when you do something with it, will you?
I certainly will. I will shoot you a link as soon as we have the date, but it'll be early June. That's
great. All right. Many thanks. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
I will. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. If it's to be, it's up to me. Amazing how today's day and age of everyone wanting to shirk responsibility and point the finger and place blame, salespeople cannot do that. You cannot make excuses and make deposits into your bank account. So that's why I love the profession of sales. We all know who the number one salesperson is in any industry. There always can be debate about who is the best painter, who is the best architect, who is the best mechanical engineer. But in sales, just look at the whiteboard, right? Look at the totals, and you know who the best salesperson is today, the week, for the month, the year, the decade, forever. In any particular industry, you can look them up and you know definitively, because we cannot make excuses. That's why I was really excited to have Jonathan on the podcast. His decades of experience is quite beneficial for all of us. What he's doing with his blog and with Top Sales World and Top Sales Experts, with this conference coming up in November in Philadelphia, is fantastic. Great resources for salespeople to not make excuses, to figure out what they need to do to make the sale and create their own future. So if you like this podcast, please share the love. Visit thesaleswhisperer.com/love, and it will create a little pre-written tweet for you. And also leave some comments at thesaleswhisperer.com/session 70. And finally, if you need some resources to help you grow, check out 30daysalesgrowth.com. Enter promo code podcast and save $30. As always, I thank you for listening, and remember to sell different.